Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark State Historic Site. We have a very special program for you today. This is our Education Day program. Education Day is by far one of the most fun days of the year here at Lewis and Clark State Historic Site. And on a normal year, we would see about 700 to 900 students, all fourth graders from about a dozen different schools, some here in Illinois, some across the river in Missouri, all coming here to meet with dozens of reenactors, historic artisans, storytellers, and a lot of our other volunteers and staff. It's always a blast. The kids have a great time learning and engaging firsthand with history. And unfortunately, we can't do that this year, so we've put on a virtual education day for you. I've called in some of our volunteers to help put on this program. So we'll have a handful of videos for you depicting different parts of the Lewis and Clark story. One of the washerwoman, as presented by Barb Miner. Another one of the White Pirogue, one of the boats that Lewis and Clark took with them on their journey, and that'll be interpreted by Maynard. And finally, we will have our sometime staff and sometime volunteer Bob Mitchell present the rocks and minerals of the Lewis and Clark expedition. These videos will all run together. We will eventually post them all separately on our Facebook page, but enjoy the rest of the program. Let's start with the first video.
Well, hi everybody. I'm the washerwoman at Lewis and Clark, and today I'm going to talk to you about how we did laundry in 1803. You know, doing laundry in 1803 and 1804 is not very much like how we do laundry in 2021. It's really quite different. So the first thing you'll notice is this yoke that I have and these buckets. So when I need to do laundry, I have to do all of the water carrying myself, or the kids will, or someone else. But we have to bring lots and lots of water when we're doing our laundry. We have to fill at least 3 tubs. You'll see my 3 tubs that I have out today. We need to do at least 3 of those. So that's carrying a whole lot of water. I'm going to take this off. Now, I arrived at Camp River Dubois on January 1st. You see, I'm a widow, so I don't have a husband, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to make it through the winter. Well, the men arrived in December, and I thought maybe they would hire me as a washerwoman, because I know enough about the Army that I know that they can hire a washerwoman for every 100 men. And there's 30 to 40 men staying at Camp River Dubois. So I come and ask if I can be hired, and they hire me. Now, part of being hired as the washerwoman, they build me a place to stay. I get my daily rations, so that's my food that I get every day. And I get paid when I do the laundry for the men. Now, I think this is a pretty good deal. You see, for every 12 items that a man brings to me, if he brings his own soap, I get paid 13 cents. If I use my soap, like this soap right here, I get 25 cents. Isn't that awesome? So I am going to be able to stay here at least until the men leave on their journey. I don't know how long that's going to be, but we'll see. So let's talk about how we do the laundry. So we filled our 3 buckets full of water, and I have a fire under this one. Now, it's really important to me to make sure that I boil my clothes, because my clothes in 1803 and 1804, they might have vermin in them. Now, for me, vermin, I'm thinking about bugs. In 2021, we know that some of those bugs might actually be germs, but I don't really know that. I just know I need to have nice, clean clothes, and that my family stays healthier when my clothes are clean. So I will boil these clothes. Oh, I forgot to add my soap again. So I'm going to put some soap in. These are crumbles of lye soap. And we're going to put some lye soap in here. There we go. All right. So we're going to let those clothes boil for a while. Now, when I think a piece is ready to come out, I'm going to lift it out. very carefully. All right. And I'm going to rinse it off in this one a little bit. And then I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to see if it's clean enough. Well, I have some stain here, so I want to do some more washing on that. So I'm going to bring it over here. I have more soapy water here. This is not boiling, but it's warm. So I can put my hands in this. I'm going to take some more soap, and I'm going to put it on this really good. And then I'm going to scrub it. This is a washboard, and this is going to help me get some of those stains out. All right, so we'll wash that, and we'll rinse it, and we'll scrub it some more. Now, if it's not getting clean enough, I might take it out. I might set it on a stone or a rock or my table here. And then I'm just going to try to beat that dirt out. I might decide to cook it again in my hot water. And I'm just going to keep going until I think this is clean enough. Rinse it there. Now, once I decide it's clean enough, I have to put it out to dry. I'll have a clothesline for a lot of the pants and the different colored shirts, but white will actually get more white if I lay it on grass. We'll bring that out and we'll let that lay there and we'll let that dry, and then I'll turn it over. Now remember, I'm doing this for 40 men, so I'm pretty busy every day while the men are here in camp. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, we're going to talk about the boats of the Lewis and Clark expedition. But first, how many boats did Columbus have? That's right, he had 3 boats. What are the names of them? The Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, right? How about the Jamestown settlers? You know, when Captain Smith came and met Pocahontas, how many boats did they have when they came across the ocean? A little tougher, isn't it? They had the Godspeed, the Susan B. Constant, and the Discovery. So they had 3 boats. Can you guess how many boats Lewis and Clark had when they left on their expedition? There's a pattern there. Pick up on the pattern. That's right, they had 3 boats. They had the keel boat, the big 55-foot long keel boat. They had a smaller boat called the Red Pirogue, and they had this boat, the White Pirogue. And they left May 14th, 1804 from Camp River Dubois and set out in these 3 boats. These 3 boats carried all their provisions, their luggage, a lot of presents for the Native Americans they were taking, as well as they took the 40 or 50 men that left on this expedition on that day of May 14th. Now, these boats had several different ways they could be propelled. They could be put the sail down and let the wind push them, but you had to get the wind to cooperate. It had to be going in the right direction. You could pole it, where you take a long pole if the water is shallow. You put the pole in the water, hit the bottom, and you push. And you keep pushing, poling the boat. They could also row the boat. Now they would get to their oars, facing backwards, and they would row the boat, and they'd go, row, row, row your boat gently down. No, it wasn't like that. It was more like, row, row, row. It was a lot of hard work. It wasn't fun at all. It's not like it's a Caribbean cruise. They had one other way they could propel the boat, and that is by cordelling, or tying a rope to the front of the boat and walking on the mud and the gunk on the edge of the river. Pull the boat. Pull, and they're slipping and getting in the briars and the mud holes, and It wasn't a lot of fun either. This expedition was a lot of work, and they had to have strong people who could pull those oars, who could push those poles, who could do whatever they needed to do, and that's why this was such a team effort. Everybody had to do their job, everybody had to work, everybody had to participate in this. If you'll follow me down, we have some illustrations I'd like to show you. What we know about the White Pirogue was information recorded by William Clark in his journals and some letters that he and Captain Lewis wrote back home. In his journal, he drew an illustration of the White Pirogue that looked like this, only it was about that big. He puts a few details in the drawing, but not very many. He notes that it carries 8 tons of cargo, it's 8 feet wide, but other than that, there's not a lot of information that we have about that. Our boat designer, Butch Beauvais out of Iowa, came up with this design of a Mackinac type boat that would fit this illustration. It has a flat stern and a pointed bow. The pointed bow, of course, would cut through the water as you're going upstream or downstream. The flat stern would help catch the current as you're going downstream and help give you that extra push. But this was the main boat that they used for the expedition because it was the shortest and most stable boat. It served even at one point to transport a horse across the river. Now the White Pirogue, the Red Pirogue, and the keel boat left Camp River Dubois on May 14, 1804. On this map you see before you is a map showing Camp River Dubois here, and they left on May 14th, and they're going up this river. They're rowing, they're poling, they're sailing, they're cordelling, month after month after month after month. Makes me tired just talking about it, but they're working hard to get it all the way up the river till finally they get in North Dakota, and this white stuff starts coming out of the sky. They say it's snow. We need to pull over. So they pulled over, made friends with a tribe of Native Americans called the Mandan. They built a fort there and spent the winter there. Come springtime, they decide that they need to head west, but they know that the keel boat itself is too big to continue up the river. The water is too shallow, the turns are too sharp, so that 55-foot long keel boat is sent back with Corporal Warfington down the Missouri River back to St. Louis. The keel boat is loaded with journals for the president, artifacts, Native American clothing, animal skeletons and skulls of new animals. And if you can imagine, when President Jefferson gets on his knees on his carpet in the Oval Office, and he kneels down, he's got the white powdered wig and the knee breeches, and he's on the floor, and he opens a box, out hops a prairie dog. Something he had not, or no one in the East had ever seen before. Well, on April 7th, Lewis Clark, the expedition, 33 members, they continue west in the White Pirogue, the Red Pirogue, and some dugout canoes they make. And they're going up the river against the current. They're poling, sailing, pulling, anything they can do to make it up the river till finally they get to the Marias River. And they figure out this Red Pirogue, the one bigger than the White Pirogue, this Red Pirogue is too big. We can't take it any further. So they cache it, they stash it, they bury it, they cover it up, they hide it, they say we'll pick it up on the way home. They continue on west with the White Pirogue and the canoes they have made, and they finally get to the Great Falls of the Missouri River. And there's no way they're going to get this around 5 waterfalls. So they cache the White Pirogue, they stash it, they cover it up, they hide it, they say we'll pick it up on the way home. So they continue across the mountains onto the ocean. Then the next spring they're coming back, they get to where they left the White Pirogue, they uncover it, and it floats like a cork. So they're very happy to get that White Pirogue to sail on down the Missouri River. They get to the Marias River where they cache the Red Pirogue. They pull it out and it disintegrates. It's no good. They can't use it anymore. So they continue on down the Missouri River with the White Pirogue and the canoes they made and some bull boats. While they were staying with the Mandan, they learned how to take a buffalo hide, stretch it over a willow frame. It looked like a cereal bowl, a giant cereal bowl, and 1 or 2 people could float in that bull boat. And so they continued on down, and they were going down the river, they were going downstream, they had the current with them, the White Pirogue, the canoes, the bull boats. Going up, they were making 10 or 12 miles a day on a good day. Going down, there were days that they made 70 miles because they were anxious to get home. They were anxious to get back to civilization. Finally, in September of 1806, they stopped back at Camp River Dubois, and then they left to go to St. Louis because that's where the party was going to be.
Hello, my name is Bob, and today we're going to talk about the mineral and rock collections made by the Lewis and Clark expedition. They were commissioned by President Jefferson to make geologic observations and collect specimens throughout their trip. They collected over 150 samples. Not all of them were mineral and rocks. Sometimes they collected clay or soil or sand and even water samples from various places along the Missouri and the Columbia River. They sent the shipments back to President Jefferson in 3 sets. There was a shipment made before they left Camp Dubois, and there was also a shipment made from Fort Mandan, and some specimens were sent back via New Orleans to President Jefferson when the expedition returned in 1806. What happens to the collection after President Jefferson looks at it is somewhat of a mystery, and it becomes a little bit murky. The collection is looked at by a couple of individuals. Then a geologist named Adam Siebert looks at the collection. He makes a list of the specimens he finds in the collection, and the collection is later displayed at Peale's Museum in Philadelphia, later being sold to the P.T. Barnum collection, and most of the collection is apparently destroyed in a fire in 1859. But we still have Dr. Siebert's list, and the specimens we have here are representative of the specimens that Dr. Siebert's lists on his catalog. So first we have rocks and minerals. Minerals are natural objects. A piece of brick or a piece of concrete is not a mineral. It has to be natural. They have to be solid. Most of the time, they will form crystals or flat planes on them. We'll talk about the minerals as we go on. Rocks are formed of more than one mineral. So we have rocks which have one or more minerals in them. We'll start with the rocks here today. And as Lewis and Clark were in this area, they were in an area of bluffs and hills, and the hills and bluffs were made of sedimentary rocks, which are formed underwater, and the names reflect the kind of sea bottom sediments the rocks were formed from. So we have limestone, which is kind of your typical driveway rock, formed from a limey bottom. Sandstone, which is formed of sand grains cemented together. Then we have shale, which represents a muddy bottom. Then we have, this is chert or flint. It forms in sedimentary rocks, and when it breaks, it will form a sharp edge, which was used by the Native Americans to make stone tools in this area and throughout the Missouri River. As they headed further west, they got into the Rocky Mountain and later the Colorado Plateau, where they had igneous rocks, rocks that were formed in volcanoes or formed from molten lava. We have granite. Granite forms the basis of the Rocky Mountains. Things like Pikes Peak are made of granite. Then we have basalt. It, unlike the granite, does not have any individual crystals that are visible, and it's formed underground by molten lava. We have pumice, which is kind of a volcanic froth, almost like the froth on a soda. And those are some of the rocks that they made observations of and collected samples of. Now we will turn to the minerals. And the first mineral we'll talk about is something called halite or rock salt. Well, rock salt, when it's found in nature, is not usually like the salt that you saw, use a salt shaker with. This is what you normally would expect. But in nature, pure salt is seldom pure. It almost always includes other things. Another mineral that came from this area that they got in the first shipment of minerals from this area that they sent was galena. Galena is lead ore. It forms cubic crystals. As somebody said, it almost looks like a little city. And it's a lead ore. Lead, of course, was used for bullets, for hunting and defense, and very useful. The French had been mining it in Missouri for several years, and they gave Lewis a sample. Other common minerals that they found were things like quartz. Quartz is the most common mineral you'll find, and it's very hard. It will scratch glass, and usually form six-sided crystals like this. It comes in a variety of colors and also various bands. This is a piece of agate. It has bands representing the different colors or showing the different colors of quartz. We have calcite. Calcite, again, is a very common mineral. It forms in this area, and Captain Lewis found numerous samples of this. Sometimes it forms these rhombohedral crystals, like this, which have kind of a diamond shape when you look at them. Another very soft mineral is gypsum. And gypsum is so soft that you can scratch it with your fingernail. And it's a very useful mineral today, and then we use it for plaster. You know, when you buy plaster at the hardware store, you're buying dehydrated gypsum. When you take it home, you add the water, and it becomes gypsum again. One of the types of minerals that President Jefferson was most interested in them finding were ore minerals. And ore is a mineral that contains a valuable metal, or a metal that is useful. And so they look for things such as iron and copper ores. And so we have some iron ores here. This one is probably fairly familiar to you. It's called pyrite, iron pyrite, or fool's gold, because it does look somewhat like gold, and it would be able to fool some people. It's actually much lighter than real gold and somewhat different in color. We have marcasite, another iron mineral, and it forms little crystals, very similar. Then we have a third one, which is melanterite. Melanterite is an iron copper sulfide. Now, all sulfide minerals release, particularly when they're exposed to water or humidity, will release sulfuric acid. And in August 1805, Captain Lewis is trying to identify a mineral. He first hits it with a rock and then heats it with a hammer. And it gives off fumes which he attributes to arsenic or cobalt, but we now believe are actually sulfuric acid fumes from a mineral such as melanterite. It makes him sick for a day or so, and he does recover, but that does discourage him from doing experiments. This is what the sulfuric acid actually did to the lid of the box the rock was, or the mineral was in. We have copper ores. Yeah, we have azurite and malachite. The azurite is the blue, the malachite is green. They certainly reported malachite along the Missouri River. And then we have chalcopyrite, which they also found, which looks somewhat similar to pyrite. We have bituminous coal, which was becoming very important because as the Industrial Revolution began, and they found coal along the Missouri River in Missouri and further upward in the Dakotas. We'll talk about one other mineral in particular here, and this is fluorite. This is our state mineral, and fluorite forms cubic crystals. You can see the cubes. It usually is purple, but can be other colors. And it was mined in southern Illinois around Cave-In Rock, southeastern Illinois, for a number of years. It's used as a flux in the steelmaking industry and also for rocket fuel. Now, Lewis took a number of minerals with them, including this one called magnetite. As the name implies, it's a natural magnet, We've got it picking up a paper clip here. And they also took it, if they had broke a compass needle, they were in bad trouble. But if they took a regular sewing needle, per se, and would rub that on the magnetite, it would magnetize the needle, and they could use it as an emergency compass needle. They also showed the Indians how the magnetite would make the compass needle move. And that fascinated the Indians. They had never seen a rock or a mineral that would do that. We mentioned pumice earlier, and our piece of pumice here, as I mentioned, it's kind of like the froth of a soda, and it does have cavities in it, some of which are sealed, so it will indeed float. Because some of the cavities are sealed. And Lewis and Clark indeed did find a sample of pumice floating down the Missouri River. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Go enjoy other Lewis and Clark presentations we have here. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today for our Education Day programming. We're really excited that we were able to present this with you. Anytime I get a chance to work with our volunteers that are so passionate about what they do, it makes for a very easy and very fun day. Our volunteers put a lot of time and effort into making sure that their interpretation and their information is spot on so that students, other visitors can all engage with the Lewis and Clark story and help to incorporate it into some part of their life and really modern life as we know it. You can check out our other videos that have a lot of other great information, sometimes with volunteers, sometimes with other staff members. You can find those on our YouTube page, our Facebook page, and at www.campdubois.com. Thanks for watching.